So I'd like to welcome Oyin to a fireside chat with me. As I mentioned earlier, she's come from Birmingham to join us today, and I'm really, really grateful that she's able to share her journey of building her two businesses with you. So Oyin is the founder of Niyo, an award-winning company that uses technology to empower underrepresented economically underrepresented groups, especially women. This organisation has two brands that sit within it: Niyo Hair and Beauty, Jorra is the product, and Niyo Labs. The Niyo Hair and Beauty is an AI copilot that services over 1,000 clients through a one-stop AI-powered salon across the UK, whilst economically empowering hairstylists through an academy to get accredited. Niyo Labs is a gamified community learning platform that exists to empower people to pursue their business ideas and career aspirations through curated learning and gamified learning sprints, hackathons, and bootcamps. She's also a venture scout for Ada Ventures, who will be hearing from Matt, one of the co-founders of Ada Ventures, on a panel later today as well, and brings all of her knowledge from over a decade of building businesses, empowering female entrepreneurs, and building tech products. So to start with, we're going to have sort of a 5-minute demo of her products, and then we're going to go into a fireside chat. I do have a Slido open, so if you go to sli.do and type in the code 3317111, I didn't collect the iPad that has those on it, but I will log in somehow, some other way, and get those from someone at some point. So I'd really appreciate your applause in welcome Oyin to the stage this afternoon. To do your demo there.
Yes, thank you so much, Shona, so much for the introduction. Good morning, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be with you today, and also just to talk about my journey. Every time people ask me to talk about my journey or to demo my products, I kind of see it as an opportunity to show that anyone can do it. Now, I started this journey accidentally. I started braiding my sister's hair from our bedroom when me and my mom, my family moved from Nigeria at the age of 13, and I couldn't find a stylist to braid our hair. And I said, Mom, we can do this. I can do it. And from that point, the neighborhood saw what I could do. And I started to grow my clientele from just me and my sister to over 2,000 clients by the age of 21. So that was accidental. But I knew that I didn't want to be a hairstylist. That wasn't like the path that I wanted to take. I knew that I wanted to do something a lot bigger and impact more people. And so how do I scale that was something on my mind so that I can become an economist. That was the plan. That was the goal. And so all of the impacts that had happened from that point just made me realize that this entrepreneurship journey was my calling. And so I decided to stick with it. Thank you. So yeah, the beginning, it's a little bit of what I just said. I did a lot of work when it comes to empowering women. Whilst I was at university, I took part in various different projects, but I also worked in a corporate organization called Rolls-Royce. I also was branding Norwood's stylists when she would come to the UK. So that kind of impact was very shocking to me. But then as I styled a lot of these women's hair, I would find myself supporting them with their business plans, their CVs, and their career pathways. And I said, you know what? I'm tired of these women coming to me in their appointments to get startup advice. Let's do an event like Slush'D. So everyone leave me alone so I can become an economist. And so we ran an event called Beyond Hair at the time, and the first event had over 70 women in there. And then people just kept asking for more. But then the third event that we ever ran, we ran a coding class because women asked for that. And that led us to creating our now education bootcamps, which has now empowered over 1,000 women across the UK to be able to go from no skill to be able to work in large organizations like you can see on there. And from that point, we needed to scale this further, and we knew that we needed to impact more women. So we've been able to support 1,000 women to become software engineers, data analysts, but also start their own tech businesses. We have women building AI tools for dentistry, have women building tools to be able to allow physiotherapists take notes in a more intelligent way. Those are just some of the examples of women that we've supported. But I knew that I needed to go back to the root. How do I go back to the root? I knew that from the 1,000 clients that I had, I wanted to create a more innovative solution to really transform the textured hair industry. And I had this idea of having an Uber and a Siri for hair, where people can try on hairstyles. So that's me, where over there, where I got to try on, our app is called Jorra, where you can try on hairstyle and get your hair appointment booked in a beautiful AI-powered salon in Birmingham that then scales beyond that point. So that's what I've been working on. Most of this has been bootstrapped, so I haven't received any investment. So if any startup founders listening to me, I did not start with a technology background. So yeah, like I believe that if I'm built to build, you can too. So yeah, the fearless life is yours, be it because I was it. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Oyin, for that. I think it's true to say that many entrepreneurs don't choose the route that they end up taking. It's an accidental one. So it's good to know that we're in good company with you there. What's your vision? So you've talked a bit more maybe about the hair product here, but we talked a lot the other week about the ed tech platform that you have that empowers people as well. So between both of those businesses, what are your vision for what you can achieve with it in terms of the scale or the impact that they're going to have?
So for me, I think at the core of everything that we build is actually enabling people to be able to build products that actually transform society. That is at the core of everything that we build. How do we impact our economies? How do we impact our planet in positive ways? And I believe that education is at the root of it. My late father, before he passed away, was a champion of education, and he knew that if you can get educated, you're unstoppable. And so even with the hair business, our stylists are educated to a great standard. So yeah, for me, start with education and then build from there.
And the EdTech platform, then, you mentioned 1,000 women there. What's the vision for where that could get to?
So the 1,000 women actually were upskilled through our bootcamps.
Okay.
And now we have on the platform over 1,500 people from across the world, from African countries to the UK, and actually some people from Brazil. I don't know where they came from, but and for me, it's about how do we scale education in a gamified and in a way that is attractive for the new age, and where AI is disrupting how we learn. How do we make sure that learning remains accessible, but also humans aren't left behind? So for me, I just kind of see within the next 5 years, how can we upskill the next 1 million Earth citizens who are from underrepresented groups, and can actually do something with the education that they've gotten and build stuff. So on our platform, it's not just learning mocks, it's not just learning courses, it's actually about building stuff from the courses that you learn, and getting points from it, but also being able to redeem those points for opportunities.
So it's leveling up.
Yes.
Let's level everyone up.
Yeah.
You make a really good point about human contact in the age of AI, which actually is the title of one of our talks very shortly. So you touch on some really interesting things there. So I'm looking forward to Shay and Caitlin's discussion about that later on today as well. So the title is that 100 million users is what you're hoping to get to with that bootstrapped starting point.
Yeah.
What's the journey that's taken you on so far, and what's next for you to enable that? Like, who are your customers? How are you acquiring those users? And where have you come from with it?
So my customer is the woman, very specifically the Black woman. So how I've acquired them is actually making sure that I have a community-centric approach, making sure that we're speaking their language. So in our community, this is beyond people that are in the platform. We have over 10,000 women in our community from across the world. For us, how we acquire them is we do events like this. We also run webinars where we attract people to come to build. So, for example, 2 weeks ago, we did an AI agent webinar where people could build their own AI agents. Because my heart is literally about how can we get more people to build stuff. In terms of the 100 million target for me, I kind of see it as like, how can I take a percentage of the earth, that still don't have access to innovative education, and how can I make that as accessible as possible? So even our model for the platform is a freemium model where people can actually have access without having to kind of commit anything. But then behind that is government contracts as well as B2B stuff. So yeah, that's kind of the heart behind why we're doing what we're doing.
And heading to that 100 million. I guess that's what we have to think about, is that even if we're building in Cornwall, the Southwest, or somewhere else in the UK, our market immediately is global, because tech enables everyone to access what we're doing. So maybe there's a thought there for some of our startups today.
I realised that I didn't answer your question about the bootstraps.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so first of all, I think it's a miracle that I've got here, because most people who bootstrap just give up because it's so tough, right? And building a tech platform is so tough in itself with like zero money. I started off this journey with £200 a week because that was what people would pay me to braid their hair, and then I increased and I just reinvested that money into the business. But it got to a point, and I think that point was probably about 2 years ago, where we had bootstrapped to this level. We had bootstrapped to 7 figures. This is the edtech business specifically. And I was like,
so 7 figures revenue.
Yeah, revenue. Yeah, and revenue. We were profit making. Net profit was about 40%. And I was like, we cannot grow this way. I need to, my vision is a lot bigger than this. I became very restless. I was like, I just feel so confined to just Birmingham. I feel like this vision is for the globe, right? And so I knew that I needed some sort of investment. And so I started to go on a journey where I thought it was going to be VCs, but this isn't really a VC backable business, in my opinion. I think I actually need to look at impact investors who would give me debt capital, because for me, it was literally around how do I continue to focus on the impact work. And so we received our first kind of debt check. It was on really kind of kind terms for both parties. And I got the support to really mature as a founder. I'm a very systems driven operator, but there's certain things that I think I can do much of. Actually, I need to delegate better, or I need to hire specific talent for the business model that I have. And so that funding that I got wasn't just for the money. I wasn't just looking for the money. I was looking for the right partner to be able to help me to structure my business in a better way. But I didn't raise enough.
Enough for your cash flow or enough for your vision?
Both.
Okay.
I think I'm just naturally a hustler. Like, it's gonna work. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it will work, and that's kind of how I saw it. And actually, it added more stress to me. So any lesson to anyone here is really make sure that you are being very conservative, as well as, when I mean conservative in the right way, I guess, of how much you're actually going to need in order to kind of move the dial. So yeah.
And so when you talk about debt funding, some people here might not have heard of that before, because we hear a lot about VC, about angel investors, about grants as well. What's the structure of that for you? It's debt within the business that you repay through revenues. Do they have any equity in the business?
No equity.
Anything else about it that you want to share with people?
Sure, absolutely. So this debt is not very commercial. So it wasn't from a bank. It was from a social impact investor, and there's no equity. They support you in putting together a board, and so on. And the terms are over 10 years based upon your unique situation, and then there's a year's break, so you don't have to repay back straight away, and basically it's a percentage of your profits for the next 10 years, and mine was 2% for the next 10 years, basically. And there's like some more exclusive terms there, so making sure that there's like enough money in the bank, enough cash in the bank to keep the business running. So yeah, if anyone's interested in that investor, they're called Sumerian Partners. They're absolutely amazing. I don't know what I would have done without them in this phase of building. And so oftentimes, I know that we have amazing investors in the room. You don't hear a lot of positive things from founders and investors. And actually, I have a very positive thing to say about my investors. I think they've been absolutely fantastic. So yeah, that's just an alternative way to think about, how to kind of fund your business.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, so you've said both of them were bootstrapped originally. What do you think your funding journey looks like going forwards with the EdTech platform and the hair business, Jorra? Because if you're going to hit 100 million users, or if you're going to really scale globally, that's a challenge when you're working on a bootstrap revenue reinvestment model. What does that journey look like for you next?
Okay, so I'll start with the beauty business because I feel like that hasn't gotten enough shine yet. So for me, my next kind of immediate step is angel investors. I cannot bootstrap this business any longer.
That one's revenue generating as well.
Yes, it is.
So both of them are revenue generating before you've gone out for funding or investment. Yeah.
Yes. So that's been more of like a 6-figure revenue, and we started the model as like a vertical SaaS model. Like think about it like an Uber. So we have a 40% commission on every booking. Wow. And we collect a subscription from the stylist. That's kind of our business model. So the stylist at the moment just gets to use the space for free. The major thing is the technology. Our kind of future goals really is get angel investors for now, and later on start to actually license out the technology at a large scale to major hair salons. So competitors are licensing similar technologies that don't have as much that's not as lucrative as what I showed you, for about $10,000 for 10 images. So for us, it's kind of like, how do we benchmark on that, but even give better libraries, image libraries. So yeah, that's kind of what my
and is that an imminent thing for you? Raising funding?
Yeah, raising funding. I'm not a founder that. I don't know, I'm a weird founder. I'm not a founder that thinks...
I think all founders are a bit weird.
Yeah, we're all weird. Yeah.
We're all weird, yeah.
But I don't think, like, to start this business, I need to raise investment. When I speak to a lot of women founders, I'm just like, okay, I understand the challenges that we have. Honestly, I really do. But, like, don't let the landscape really stop you from building this. Like, what can we do to make it happen? And if I can do it, if I started from £200, you can, right? I'm a bit, a bit of a lunatic when it comes to that, but and I can get very obsessive over building, and sometimes you just need support. So yeah, for me, angel investment is the next step, basically for the beauty business. Now, the education business. It's further social impact investors. How do I get more social impact investors that align with my current investor? Because I think it works. The model works for what we're trying to build.
Yeah, you mentioned there about the building something and getting it out. And I guess nowadays we've got more opportunities to do that because we've got vibe coding. I'm sure someone will touch on it later. We've got Cursor, Lovable, there's loads of others available, Bubble, sort of some more vintage now, WordPress. Don't know if anyone remembers that. So there's loads of things that you can use to build your own products. Yeah. So you're teaching lots of women to code. What's your skill set like yourself? What do you think with?
I'm not a coder. Let me not lie. Yeah. I don't think I've had the time to actually learn to code. I can do a bit of HTML and CSS. I'm a really good vibe coder though.
Yeah.
And I can build my own AI agents, which is amazing. For me,
there's no excuse.
There's no excuse. No. Honestly, there's really no excuse. And I think there's I think AI has given us a lot of opportunities to get things out a lot faster now. So the most important things when I speak to the women founders that I mentor personally is get yourself the first 100 users. And it could literally just be like, can you test this cardboard box? Because this is the simplest version of what I want to do, and getting them engaged, building that community because there's that stickiness, because there's that sense of loyalty, that cult-like following that they would have with you regardless of your products. I mean, there's been times where there's just certain things that have flopped in my business, for example, or not worked. And because we have that cult-like following, that support to give that constant feedback is there.
Yeah, I +1 to all of that. I guess if you're B2B, maybe 10 users or 100 end users, 100 users of the product, but maybe 10 customers or potential customers. With B2C, 100 users, definitely you'd want that. And I know Figma's not the easiest thing to use, but a clickable prototype is even like halfway to getting to the point where you at least understand how those users are going to use your product. So I agree with everything you've just said. You talked about having the right investors on your journey with you, particularly when it comes to that impact piece. How do you manage balancing impact with commercial growth, but also commercial, even just break even, but not even thinking about profitability? Like, how do you balance just having impact versus commercial opportunity for those businesses?
So when I started out this business journey, or when I decided that I'm going to give this a try, I had to ask myself, what is my philosophy? What philosophy am I going to use to build this? And I came up with something called, well, I didn't come up with it. After doing much research with companies that inspired me, or models that inspired me, like Ben and Jerry's at the time and Tom's at the time, I knew that I wanted to build something that put profit, planet, purpose at the bottom line and impacting that. And so for me, I always put that at the forefront of everything that I do. And I also kind of make sure that we understand how those two things balance. I don't think they're separate things, separate ways. And I think that historically, the way business is built needs to change. And we're seeing it change. I think a lot of startup founders are now impact focused, even and whilst being very commercial. So the balance for me is making sure that I'm a voice in sharing that story, in sharing that philosophy, and kind of showing why it's important to be both. Because I believe that if you're impact focused, you can be a lot more sustainable. You can be more of a zebra rather than a unicorn. And what I mean by that, for those that don't know, you can be a long-standing business. You're not growing at all costs. You're focusing on sustainability and profitability. And that's the kind of business that I want to build. I want to exit one of these businesses one day, and I know that that impact is ingrained in society.
Yeah, awesome. So if people aren't aware of the zebra movement, as you said, it's sort of a juxtaposition to this unicorn billion-dollar valuation that tech companies have been going after with the sort of concept of growth at all costs. Bring us the cash and we'll build this enormously growth-focused company that maybe is not profitable. And some of them still aren't. So there's a movement to looking at impact as the outcome for businesses. And I guess our consumers are pushing us to be more impact-focused now. People are no longer sort of letting that slide, and they're going to act with their feet, and they're going to move to those that maybe are more impactful or have a more positive impact or purpose behind them. In terms of the investors that, because VC traditionally is looking for that billion-dollar valuation within 10 years of building a business. That's the unicorn sort of summary. In terms of the investors you're working with, what do they classify as success? Like, how are they thinking about impact as their success metric?
So if my edtech investors were VCs, they actually will be Series A VCs because of how they treat me, I guess. Series A VCs in context of me, because they actually work with earlier stage businesses as well. And so we look at commercial, like we look at cash, we look at profitability, but we also look at how, like, what's the quality of the impact, not necessarily the quantity of the impact. What's the, how is this changing things in the societies that you're operating in? How is it impacting your clients and your customers? So we have government clients, right? How is this kind of changing narrative and policy? So that's how they view it. People would naturally probably think, oh my gosh, they're impact investors, so they're going to be really charitable and whatever. No, they're very focused on the numbers.
The numbers have to work.
Yeah, they have to work, or we're not going to do it. So they're a good example of that balance, and it's not an uncomfortable conversation. So they would not prioritize one over the other. We're always driving at the same distance together. So they're not going to say, oh, let's just make as much money as possible. Let's just let's just grow at all cost, because that's going to make us crash, because that's not the type of business that we're trying to build. But also, let's not just make impact at all costs, because we're going to have nothing left.
You're not a charity.
Yeah, exactly. We'll be a charity. So yes, it's striking that balance. And I think practically how that has been maintained on like a monthly basis. I send management reports to my investors with our, our accounts, like balance sheets and so on and so forth. But I also send monthly impact reports as well, and we analyze it. And I'm not saying all investors do this, but this is just the agreement that I've had with my investor in terms of what I think was going to work for me.
What type of metrics are you looking at for impact with the learners? Like, what do you measure and report on?
So we look at how weekly active users contribute towards points. We have a point system, and that point for us is a level of engagement and level of engagement with actually building. That's number one. We also look at positive outcomes. So for us, positive outcomes means that these people have actually gotten opportunities and jobs from the platform, but also soft skills, like how much has this person's confidence increased. And when I look at confidence, I don't look at it like it's a workshopable thing. It's more like actually practical steps at which this person's confidence has increased. E.g., I'm now able to confidently apply for this job because I now have these skills. So those are the metrics that we generally look at.
That's awesome. So I've got a couple of questions now about you as a founder and your journey and your top tips for other people. I'm wondering if there's an iPad as well for Slido. So if anyone's got any questions, thank you for saving me. Please submit them to Slido, and I will, thank you, Kaylee, collate and see if we can make sure that we cover some of them at the end, which we should have time for. So so you support underrepresented people to access education that they may not have had access to otherwise. As an underrepresented founder yourself in this space, and if we think 2% of VC funding last year went to female founders, we've still got a challenge in
Black female founders.
Equity, yes, and it's 0.1%, I think, for black female founders.
Yes.
So we've got an even bigger challenge to overcome when it comes to finance. But it turns out women are still succeeding despite the lack of funding. What challenges have you experienced? How have you overcome them? Or what opportunities have you actually seen as an underrepresented founder yourself?
I'm glad that you talked about the opportunities, because oftentimes when we talk too much about the challenges, it becomes, a different story. In terms of the challenges myself that I have seen, when I started the journey of looking to raise finance for my education business, I just thought it was going to be VC because I didn't have as much understanding. And actually thankful to Ada Ventures angel program, because I was one of the angels. It opened my eyes to a lot of things that I didn't know myself as a founder. I got myself into various conversations with certain VCs, and I did get soft commits, but the valuation wasn't right for me and for my business at the time. And I remember asking for feedback later on, just it was casually, because with one of the partners that that gave me that soft commit, and the comparison, the reason why they gave me that valuation was that they compared me with someone who was was making hair products, physical hair products, like shampoo and conditioner. Yeah. And she happens to be a black woman from Birmingham as well. And they said, "Oh, you guys are too similar. This, again, this was the edtech business. You guys are too similar. We've already invested in the black woman, so we can't invest. We thought if you're going to take it,
We've had the seat taken.
And I often think that is very challenging That's very challenging to have that, for investors to have that perspective on a group of people, because although I'm a black woman, the quality of my work is not defined by the color of my skin or my gender, right? And so that was very disappointing to hear, but also it made me realize that there was an opportunity for me to educate and ask more questions of why that was the conclusion that was made, and actually a narrative that needs to be built by black female founders as well, on how we showcase how we build. So telling more stories of what we're building, and making it more about. That's why I accepted this, because I was like, this is not about me being a black woman. This is about me building something, telling more stories of the impact of what we're trying to build, and showing the numbers and being very kind of forthcoming about it. I guess the opportunity that exists, aside from some of the things that I've mentioned, and being underrepresented, is because you're very much connected to the people with the biggest pain points. When we think about value proposition statements, we're thinking about who is the person that has the biggest pain that this can be a painkiller for. So the person with the biggest pain shows more value in it, and so there's an untapped market of people who are looking for their pains to be solved, and many people are ignoring it. And so I see it as an opportunity to really tap that market and unlock it. I think of friends of mine who have built solutions in different markets, who have been able to scale their companies when like normally those audiences or those customers would have been overlooked.
Yep.
And then investors were too late, unfortunately, because of that perception. It's an endemic issue and it's very systematic, and I think it's going to take a long time for us to really break down those barriers. And then
Yeah, no.
And I think lastly as well, let's be honest, I think most women tend to build businesses that are very much lifestyle, and so that doesn't fit the natural kind of thesis of VCs. And a lot of times women aren't educated on why it doesn't fit. And so most women just go and grow and build anyway, regardless, right? So yeah, I think there needs to be a diversity of education of like, this is what you can have access to as women founders.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, it trickles down, doesn't it, in that you build something for a problem you've seen.
Yeah.
And then if you think you can't build it because you've not been around people who have built stuff, then you don't think that it's possible for you to do it. So one, you've identified that you'd be closer to a type of customer that someone else who is building something wouldn't be. Yeah. And then we don't see diversity in investors, not just VC, but angel investors and others. There's a lot of people doing work in the UK at the moment to diversify that, because if you can't see the problem yourself as an investor, you're not going to see the opportunity either. So then there's that challenge as well in diversifying the funding that's coming through from the people who understand those problems as well. So I think, yeah, you're right. It's a challenging problem, but there are opportunities in it, as you've identified, in untapped markets because they haven't been the focus to date. So that's really great to see. What's your biggest challenge? So as an entrepreneur and a founder, we said earlier they're all a bit weird, but also you said yourself you're quite restless. So as a founder yourself, what's your favourite thing about this journey that you've been on to date or that you do? And what's your personal sort of biggest challenge with that entrepreneurship journey and tech startup journey?
I think my biggest challenge has been seeing rest and pausing as a strategy for me. I'm very restless. So how do I balance my restlessness with rest? Because actually when I realized that when I actually take time to pause, to celebrate, I actually come out with greater sparks of ideas, tactics, strategies to take me to the next level. But when this is kind of rat race that comes with being a founder, like doing multiple things. So that's been a challenge, and I'm learning to master that. So I actually I schedule my rest times now, because I know that I wouldn't do it if, regardless.
I think that's one of the things being in Cornwall enables us to do.
Yes.
I don't know if anyone else lives right by the beach, but you can't not rest and take it in if you're surrounded by this environment. Like, that's part of the reason that people live here. So I think we naturally have a slightly better balanced mix, even if we're quite driven in our work life. So yeah, definitely recommend moving to Cornwall as a
for sure. I also think that your background. I'm Nigerian and I lived in Lagos. Oh my gosh. Crazy place. It's Lagos is always on, and that energy, that restlessness that comes with that. I'm so grateful to be British, to be British Nigerian, because I think Britain actually brings a little bit of melancholy, like calm down a little bit, it's not the end of the world. So yeah. I really value being British.
That resonates, having worked for a Silicon Valley startup. I don't know if we're going to cover that a bit later as well, but I find the speed that I naturally feel internally is not the speed that anyone else is operating at, and also not the speed I can physically operate at either. Yeah. And so there's like a tussle between the speed that you want to be operating at and what you can actually physically achieve. So yeah, that's really helpful insight. In terms of your favourite thing then, what gives you said you've got a lot of spark, what's the favourite thing on the journey? What's the thing that when you do stop to celebrate your achievements that you find yourself celebrating you've achieved?
I think it's the impact. It's the impact that we're having on the end user. Just seeing some people saying, "Oh my gosh, Niyo has changed my life." I didn't start this business to change anybody's life. I started
Not to start with.
yeah, like I did. That was not what that was the plan. That was the plan. The plan was to go to university and just become an economist. But yeah, so yeah, I think that impact is like something that I don't think money can buy. Basically, from women who have had no tech skill to becoming software engineers at like your the big fours, and growing their careers. For me, that's irreplaceable. Or stylists, who can now earn more money, by doing hair and getting kind of a myriad of customers consistently. For me, is the economic empowerment piece is the most important thing for me. Is the exciting bit.
It's exponentially benefiting other people.
Yeah, sometimes up to my detriment.
Well, there's a question that came in, and it feels like this. You might have already answered it, but when you first started out, what made you keep going and not give up? Because obviously that early stage is really challenging.
Yeah.
Is it this, or is there something else in that early stage that you found was really impactful for you?
To be honest, I didn't know that. Like in my early stage, I didn't know that. What kept me going was the excitement. I had more energy. I was young, right? Like it was like, wow, this is so cool.
I think I remember what that feels like.
Yeah. Like I was like, what happened to that young energy? So yeah, I think it was the fact that this is like really cool, and people, yeah, it still goes back to the impact as well. Like, and people would like stop me on streets, say, oh my gosh, this is so cool, like, and all of that. But I think the fact that I could see that it was contributing to society, and to regions, for me is like a given. Yeah.
I think when you've built something and put it out there, and then someone who you've never met or don't know has then either bought something or come to your product and asked you a question, and you think, oh my gosh, this is in the real world, like actual people are using it, and we're the mice behind the computers that are dealing with it. I don't know if that's a feeling that only
100%.
certain people love, but
100%. It's also that Brazilian user on that tech
where
platform.
did they come from?
Yeah, like where did they come from? So yeah.
So you've mentioned Lagos there. Actually, there's another question that's come in that's related to that. So you've seen business building in different areas potentially. How do you see building a business in the UK versus raising investment and operating in other countries? Can you compare like the opportunity and the challenges?
So I've never done business in Lagos.
Okay.
I grew up in Lagos, but I have friends who do business in Lagos. I think growing up in Lagos makes you hungry, and there's a phrase, I'm going to interpret it. It says, Naija no dey carry last, which basically means Nigerians don't come last, right? Like we have to win regardless. And that winner's mindset gives you that extra edge. It is tougher in those markets, I think, because it's a different type of market. It's not as mature. And whatnot, from the knowledge that I've gotten. In terms of building in Britain, because that's the only experience I've had. I think it's been really around having the right relationships, but making sure that you are compliant as well. And I think that's been a really great lesson for me in my journey. How do I make sure that we're building the right systems, we're building the right processes and the right things to be able to sustain ourselves. I'm curious about America. I have a lot of people. Our beauty business has a lot of people in America that are always like asking us to come there, and we're not ready yet. But I'm really curious about how that market works, but I don't have any experience.
I can touch on it a little bit, and I think there's people talking today who might have more experience. I was there this time last year, actually. We used to take in Scotland, we took our founders out for 3 weeks to do business in San Francisco, hired a co-working space, booked some conference tickets, and then left them to do their thing. And having worked, I used to be out there quarterly for Airbnb as well. I think what's interesting about San Francisco in particular is it's like a bit of a microcosm. But what's the most exciting thing about it is that everyone there is ready to say yes to trying your product. They're ready to adopt tech. that maybe other people feel a bit nervous about. There's like more of an appetite for it. So this time last year, I was in it was an Uber, but it wasn't. It was a Waymo, which is an autonomous vehicle. So it had no driver. And I spent 45 minutes in this car coming off the freeway, going down to the beach. And there's just a willingness and an acceptance that that's just okay. You're okay to test things. I then went and had a robot manicure. There's just this acceptance that you'll try everything that's available and that the risk is not being there, not the things that could go wrong. And I think that's what I see in the UK is that there's a permanent thought about risk instead of opportunity.
Yes.
And I get it. There's a lot of regulation you've said about being compliant, but tech disruption has to happen right on the edge of what's right and what's not what's right, but on the edge of what's acceptable, maybe, because that's where the disruption happens. That's where we take the boundaries out. And I think that's where the US just has a slightly more forward-thinking approach to it. The investors there are more experienced in investing in that type of risk as well. They have more money, there's more money there as well. There's more capital. There's more people who've done it before in that way too, so that the ecosystem sits slightly differently. So I think that's what's interesting about it. But I love the emerging markets where their risk appetite is higher because they don't perceive failure in the same way as us. I think in Britain, we have a different perception of failure. And if I'm not going to offend any Scots in the room because I'm Scottish bloodline myself, but the risk appetite in Scotland and the appetite for failure is even lower.
Right.
And so I've seen that. And I think that's where there's this opportunity. Like, what is failure? There's like, you only fail if you don't do it.
Yeah.
If you've tried it and you failed. So
I think as well, like just to add to like the African market, again, I will be very specific about the Nigerian market because Africa is huge. Like the investor landscape is also very, very new. If someone is a wealthy individual, they're used to buying a bag of rice today and reselling it tomorrow and getting their money back tomorrow. So if I speak to my uncle who's stinkly rich and I said, give me £100,000 and I will give you back to you in 5 years. That takes a lot of convincing. So we're just not used, so it makes it really difficult for those founders to then get investors there, although like they're budding with ideas. A friend of mine is one of the co-founders of a company called Piggyvest, and they've only I think they've only done one round of funding because of how tough it is. But they have, I think, over 100 million users. It's crazy.
That's the market opportunity out in Nigeria, isn't it? You've immediately got that many customers available to you.
100%. And this is with, I think it was like they raised about $2 million, I think, or something like that, from what I remember. And like they've been able to really kind of flip that so quickly. Now imagine if they had more kind of funding, they could have grown that even more exponentially. The opportunity is much higher. Now you also have the lack of regulation on stable government as well, that I think makes investors really kind of scared of unstable currency rates as well. That makes investors a bit like, oh, I'm not sure about the market. But I think the population opportunity for the population, the young population, is so big. Right now, like we have a flood of people coming from Nigeria onto our EdTech platform, and these people are more hungry to learn, more hungry to change, to bring change in their countries. So that's an opportunity that exists there too. But yeah.
And so I touched on failure and like risk appetite for giving it a go. What's your concept of failure? Like, what would failure be for you?
I see. In the moment, I want to cry.
Yeah.
But on reflection, I see failure as data points to know exactly what to do better next. And I see it as like trying something and then moving forward with it. But then the Nigerian no they carry last mentality in me is like, why are you failing now? You need to win, right? So it's I have a bit of a mixed kind of relationship with it. The latter part is kind of getting rid of my childhood trauma, of like, you must win at every single opportunity. But also the fact that I feel like if I don't win, I'm actually wrecking it for other Black women. That's a huge burden on my shoulders. If I lose, if I drop the ball, I'm going to drop the ball for other people coming behind me. So I often battle with that. But actually, I just tend to just resort, after having lots of conversations with myself, that failure is just having data for the future and just trying for the future. Not necessarily trying because, let's just try everything, but like trying intentionally, with intentional kind of strategies for the future.
Well, it could be a small thing like an A/B test that you roll out on your product that one fails when you expected it to win. Yeah. But I guess there was a question. So failure to respond is respond to market signals, to respond to customer signals, I'd probably see as the biggest failure, because that's the biggest opportunity. Yes. I think there's a question to one of the pitches earlier around, like, you talked about a pivot. What were the signals you got that you needed to pivot, and when did you make that decision? I think maybe there's this bit about having to make decisions quickly, and it might not be the right decision, but it's a decision you've made with the best intentions at the time.
Yeah. I think the relationship between failure and funding is also something to really note, right? When you have a limited amount of funding, there's less opportunities to fail. So you're like, this has to work because I've just given my last 20K or whatever, my last 1,000, whatever amount, right? And so it makes it really difficult for UK founders to then feel the need to fail, because I'm like, if I fail with this small amount of money, am I going to wreck it, And so it's that kind of battle of having those systematic challenges that we often face, coupled with actually doing those A/B testing kind of scenarios.
It's technically just the path that you hadn't expected you'd go down is the failure path, maybe. You expected one and you got the other. Yeah. I sometimes see our acquisition as a failure because actually what we wanted to do was raise a Series A round. And would we have got to where we wanted to be quicker than the 5 years it took for Airbnb to do what we were going to do in the following 18 months following that fundraise? So was it technically a failure? For me, yes. Overall, success, I guess. Everyone else sees it as a success. Interesting. So I guess it's the framing of it that's important. I'm really sad that I've got a 1-minute timer left on my screen because I could sit and talk about some of these subjects all day, as you can probably tell. But on our sort of huge thank you for sharing all the detail today as well, because sometimes that's not easy for us to share as founders because it's very personally tied up in our own successes. So I just want one parting question for you to leave the audience with today. What's your top tip for someone who's starting out on this journey themselves, or maybe even a bit further along? What's the top tip that you want to make sure that other people take away from today?
Top tip that I would want other people to take away from today is start before you're ready. For much, like, especially for women, female founders, we tend to like overplan sometimes as female founders. Start before you're ready, because oftentimes there's somebody else that has started before they're ready, and they just have so much confidence in what they want to do and their vision that they go faster than you. I think the second thing that I will also say is that it's very important to have the right people for the right business model. I didn't do this well in my early stages. What I mean by that is, if your business model is B2B, how are you making sure that you're bringing on people who have B2B expertise rather than somebody who's just really good operations manager? Because you could be a good operations manager for a B2C business. There's a different type of skill set. So my top tip is really that people alignment, that team alignment to the business model that you're going to start with.
Surround yourself with the experts.
Yes, yeah. Thank you.
And that bit about being ready, I saw, so I don't know if anyone else follows Sarah Blakely, is that her surname? The founder of Spanx on Instagram. She's hilarious in lots of ways, but she posted something on Monday this week. She has a Monday mug that she posts with a caption on it every week. And this week hers was, ready isn't a feeling, it's a decision. And so it's not about feeling ready or the time being ready. It's just about deciding, right, okay, I'm ready enough. And Obama always said, if you've got 51% of the information, you're more than halfway to being 100% certain. Yes. So 51% is fine. So I think that's a really great ending for us today. Thank you so much for your travel to Cornwall today, for sharing your insights. I know that you're staying around as long as you can survive in your heels later today, which is why I've gone for trainers today. So you're joining us for demo night and for hopefully for the after party as well. So I'm sure lots of people have lots of questions for you. Really appreciate it. A huge thank you to Oyin for sharing her journey today.